Oi, it's time. It's time. It's time. What is going on, my people? Thank you so much for tuning in today to my first ever album review on my channel, The Seem the Dream. And I have the honor to make for my first review given to the Miss Lovely Olivia Rodrigo, Sour. This is Olivia Rodrigo's debut album, coming straight out of California at the age of 18 years old. And if you didn't know already, Olivia is not a stranger at all to the music industry, as she is known for her early acting career in Bizaardvark and also currently on the Disney Plus series High School Musical. If you're not familiar with how tied in Disney is with the pop industry, we already have so many big pop artists popping out from there, such as Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, and the list just goes on. So for me personally, I was really looking forward to seeing what Olivia could do, especially by first hearing her first single, Driver's License. And I'm not gonna lie, after playing her first single, Driver's License, I did like it, but I never really understood or really try to dissect on what she was really saying, what she was feeling. Kind of just played the song and I was just like, yeah, this is good. But once I played through the album, I understood it a little bit differently. So for starters, the first track on this album is Brutal. And Brutal actually composes with elements of alt rock and punk rock. And hearing into this, knowing that after hearing Brutal, we're about to hear pretty much what seems like a breakup album. But the way this starts off is honestly pretty sick. I mean, it rocks pretty hard. Not as hard as I would play most of my punk rock tracks, but you know what? It's pretty sick. I mean, the guitars on this thing sound really dope. She's already performing super well. Hearing the emotion coming off of her voice, demonstrating the anger, rage, and frustration that she's feeling, which seems like the first phase of this breakup. As we pass the bridge onto the outro of Brutal, it starts to slow down, and as we go into there, we go straight into Traitor, and then I start to realize that this is definitely a phase-by-phase breakdown of what she's going through her breakup. For me, Traitor starts off so beautifully. I mean, the harmonies on this thing are just absolutely mind-blowing. She sounds amazing on this track so far. Listening onto this track, we hear her speak on betrayal and judgment, on possibilities of maybe being cheated on or being talked to behind her back with a different girl. It seems like that cliche of what you hear behind the scenes of a relationship of like, oh, this guy or girl that I'm dating is talking to this person a lot. They say it's nothing, but it's just in the back of my head and it's kind of weird. And in the irony of it, it actually ends up being something, because 2 weeks later, apparently after the breakup, they are together. One thing that I did find a little bit odd on Traitor, I did notice that the chord progressions on the acoustic guitars, it did sound a lot similar to the song Heather by Conan Gray. And I kind of thought at first it was a ripoff. I was enjoying the track, but I was just kind of like, I don't really know about this. Come to realize that producer Daniel Negro actually created that track with Conan Gray and actually works with Conan Gray as well. Also, to make it known, it seems like Daniel Negro is actually the executive producer of Sour. So after seeing that, I was just like, okay, I guess it's kind of justified. It's a little bit of recycled chord progression, but honestly, she still makes it her own in this. I mean, her singing is absolutely immaculate so far. I'm really enjoying how we're going from Brutal to Traitor, of what seems like to be the second phase of the breakup, of realization on this is really over. This heartbreak is really settling in. And that is exactly what is going on now, continuing into the track Driver's License. Like I said, I did hear first from Olivia. And listen, I get that we hear this stuff all the time from a lot of ballads, and we always hear about the, oh, woe is me, this guy cheated on me, this girl cheated on me, they suck. The thing I really appreciate about this record is that it feels super personal as we go through these stages with her, on and on, really trying to understand what's going through her mind while she's feeling this pain. For me, I feel like it's instantly relatable going from these stages as we're at this point, and she recollects thoughts on when they would speak on before she would get her driver's license, they would drive around, want to go to places, and then now she just thinks about all the talks that they had while she has her license, driving around the suburbs, thinking about him driving past his house, etc., etc. But just because of how beautiful she sounds on this track, it truly does make you feel kind of sad. Coming off of her voice, you definitely feel sympathy for her, especially if you can relate. So on to the next track, One Step Forward, Three Steps Back. For me, this is kind of the part where she just feels hopeless and very empty inside and can't really find the joy in life at this point. We hear her more recollect on thoughts of how they were during the relationship, how difficult it was to make things work, really. She even mentions already in the beginning of this stanza that she's just trying to just see how he is by just a phone call, a basic phone call, and already gets him pissed off, and he kind of just like backlashes at her, and she's kind of like, what did I do? And the thing that's so sad about this is that she makes it clear that she can't really handle this stress, but she'd rather go through this, go with the gamble of either having a happy boyfriend or a boyfriend that just treats her like total crap than be alone. And at this point, I am so in love with the songs. I mean, they sound so great. The production so far is absolutely flawless. Nothing too creative on the point, like how I mentioned earlier with the chord progressions, but it still works. It still sounds great. It's still a clean mix, and Olivia definitely carries the weight, absolutely carries the weight so far. And the thing that I noticed that really had my attention is on the writing credibilities. We see Jack Antonoff of Bleachers, and if you don't know already, actually was credited to some of the produced work for Folklore, which is a big critically acclaimed album, if you don't know, one album of the year this past Grammys. And on top of that, we also have Taylor Swift helping with the writing. Almost seems like she's kind of like guiding her path onto the pop world almost. Definitely is something that you gotta think about, like, they really already see something in this girl. She's already only 18 years old, coming out with her first album. That's already enough promise for me, to be honest. On to one of the biggest highlights of the album, Deja Vu. We hear Olivia recollect on the experiences that she's witnessing with her ex and his new girlfriend. And she tells how he's showing this new girl things that seem so special, but really were all the things that they did together. Such as Olivia teaching her ex playing Billy Joel on the piano. As I mentioned, with the help of the writing being from Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff, we also have Annie Clark, also known as St. Vincent, helping out with Deja Vu. Like, already being recognized by such icons, already wanting to work with such a young artist at such an early stage in her career. It's so exciting. It's honestly so exciting. Next, on to debatably the biggest highlight of this album, we have Good For You. Easily the most played song out of this. I mean, it's definitely the most uplifting. It's definitely a great summer vibe. The thing that I find super ironic is that it sounds like such a uplifting, happy track, but like when you hear what she's saying, she's still in misery, mentioning how she's seeing her ex go through these things where it seems like he's super happy with how life's going right now, but she's just not. She's like super insecure, not happy with herself, not happy with life, and it seems like he's just not phased. On to Enough For You is where I see a little bit more of the decline coming for this album. I mean, it's just another clean-cut acoustic song of her more mentioning about insecurities through this whole phase and how much it's really destroyed her at this point. Instrumentally, I mean, it's holding some kind of weight. It's not really there for me, but what is still Olivia. She's still keeping narrative on topic. She's still singing so beautifully. Every time I hear this song, I just don't really care too much for the instrumental, just because I feel like it's just kind of just bland. It's not really doing so much for me. Now, it seems to be a month in time into this breakup. On the next track, Happier, we hear the slow arpeggiating piano keys playing onto this verse in this whole song, with her recollecting more about how she feels about where they're both at. My favorite part of Happier is definitely onto the bridge, where we hear these beautiful harmonics on top of these very delightful pads, and it still displays a devastating emotion coming off Olivia's voice, that she could be better at this point, and kind of just saying like, you know what, I hope you're happy, because I'm not. Jealousy for me is definitely the most lacking track on the album. Productively, the creativity just really isn't there for me at this point. I definitely like her style switch with her singing and flows, where she's trying to make sure that each of these singles still sound distinct, still sound different and unique in its own term, and also story-wise has something different into the point of where she's at. Playing Favorite Crime more and more on this record, initially, it was just kind of just like a track for me, but playing more and more, I definitely feel more of the sweetness. Instrumental is okay, you know, I don't mind the acoustics on this at all. The production is still clean. But for me, it sounds like she's pushing more of the last bit of pain that she feels for this record out all the way to the end, especially on the bridge where she's in that, your favorite kind. Damn it, just... Now on to the last track, Hope You're Okay. It kind of turns into a different direction because the narrative switches at this certain point. Now, based off the title track, I kind of thought she was directing Hope You're Okay to her ex, but really she's going on a few friends that she met in the past of these certain issues that they would have with their parents, of kind of at this certain point with one person, their parents viewing more of their religious beliefs than securing their child's happiness. But as an outro track, I definitely do not mind it. Instrumentally, it's gorgeous. And I think it shows a little bit more character to her, how much she cares about the people that she hasn't even spoken to in a long time, but she's still connected with and thinks about probably often. A summary for me for this album, it's just an absolute great debut for a pop record. Her success is just imminent. I mean, the moment this record even released, it already popped off so big. I believe 4 of the tracks were already platinum, 2 nominations from MTV and iHeartRadio for tracks on Sour, and that's already such a great start. It's well deserved. I mean, she's performing on this thing excellently. No mistakes at all from her mark. Productively is near flawless. Love how this is a continuation story of we really go through these phases day by month, by year, all the way through. The one thing that kind of confused me though at the end of this album, I kind of wanted to know more of how is she like at this point? Is she still sad? Is she happy? But if you had seen the prom live performance of Sour on YouTube, it seems like at the end of that video, she's doing pretty well. And that's really awesome. I mean, that's what I really wanted to know. I was really hoping that she's okay at this point. As I said, guys, for my score that I'm going to be going on 100%. And for my very, very first score for Olivia Rodrigo Sour, I'm going to give it an 85%. Thank you guys so much for viewing my very first review. It means so much to me. I definitely want to work more and more on getting better with this, bringing you guys more and more content and making sure I bring the most quality content. Down in the description are the links to my social media accounts to keep up with me on the daily. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Share this video with your friends. Also hit that bell to get all notified to all my new content that I release. And also let me know, what did you think of this record? Were you a fan of it? Were you not? As always, guys, I appreciate you on a whole level you will never, ever understand. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I hope you all have a great, great day. Deuces.